How's it going, guys? My name is Melissa Joe. Today we're going to be making this journaling app you see in front of you using Next.js and Vercel Postgres. And we're going to be using the Prisma ORM to make some CRUD operations in the application. Now, I know I'm a little late with the whole Vercel Postgres thing, storage, but I didn't have time because, I'm in college, obviously, and you know how that is, assignments, projects. So anyway, this is the application we're building. It's a journal application. You just write in the title and then the body. So this is a journal entry, for example. This is the mood, how I feel at the moment. And then, yeah, fairly simple. Now I can also create a new entry. So for example, be mine drop down, and you can also select a mood. So for example, excitement. And once you hit submit, you see it pop up right here. Read more. There it is. Now I can also delete it, so this right here is just, I can remove the P, for example. I can also change the mood, whatever, change the data. All right, there it is. Mood, we got the joy showing up right here. Click read more. This is our newly edited content body. I can also completely delete it. So if I click delete, it completely disappears. If this sounds interesting to you and want to follow along, be sure to smash this like button and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss more content from me. Alright, so I deleted my existing database so that I can create a new one, because you go ahead and read the docs. If you're on a hobby account, then let me just zoom in for a second. If you're on a hobby account, then you'll not be able to create more than one database at a time. So you need to be aware of that. So first things first, we're going to go ahead and click on Create Postgres. Here, click Continue, and then Accept. Now, last but not least, we're going to give it a name. So we're going to be call it Next Journal, for example. And the region will be Germany, because I live in Egypt and this is the region closest to me. But if you live somewhere else, be sure to select the region that is closest to you. And once you do that, click Create once you're done with the setup. Alright, so as you can see, we are in the Getting Started page. So we successfully created a Vercel Postgres database in the cloud. All right, now just a PSA here. Vercel Postgres isn't like what an in-house Postgres managed database. They're not managing it themselves. What they do is they brought in another serverless Postgres provider called Neon. Now, Neon also has a pretty generous free tier, as well as with Postgres. So Vercel basically took that technology and used it for their storage service. So, all right, so now that we have the database set up, what we need to do now is open up the terminal and type in npx create next app. So we're going to create a new Next.js project, and we're going to add a TS flag because this project does require TypeScript, because Prisma uses TypeScript. And we're going to call this Next Journal. You can call it whatever you want. I decided to give it that name. Now press enter. Now it's going to ask you a few questions like you want ESLint. I'll click yes. And that's to make sure that your code is properly written using, best practices and stuff like that. Tailwind CSS, we're going to click no, because we're going to be using a CSS library called Pico CSS, which I'm going to show you in a minute. Source directory, now this is self-explanatory, but I'm going to click no because I want everything in in one place. That is the directory. App router, obviously we're going to use that. Default alias, we're not going to change it, so no. And yeah, just give it a few minutes or however much time it needs, depending on your internet connection. All right, so now we've successfully created a Next.js project. All we have to do is just cd into that directory, so cd next journal. And now we're ready to install some of the packages we need for this project. So first up, we're going to install the Pico CSS library, which is fairly easy. Just get started, scroll down here. There it is, npm, commands npm install Pico CSS Pico. Hit enter. Now, if you go to the quick start, it says that we're going to need to install, Vercel Postgres, to use it. We're not gonna use this package, but rather if you go ahead to the docs using ORM, it's like Prisma. These are the two packages we'll be installing, the client and the CLI. So go ahead and copy this, go back to our terminal and paste it right here. That should install the CLI and the Prisma client to use Prisma in our project. Okay, we are done installing the packages we need. So now all we have to do is just open this up in VS Code. So code dot, you can open the root folder inside. And this is what our folder structure looks like. You have the app router, which is in the root directory, not inside the src, because I chose that in the configuration while setting up the project. Now, before we move on any further with Prisma setup and everything, we need to link this project, this Vercel, this Nextjs project we have on our computer to a Vercel project that we're going to create later. So first up, we're going to have to need to install the Vercel CLI. So to do this, we're going to type in npm install -g and then Vercel, and then you hit enter and install. I already have it installed, so I'm not going to bother with this again. But once you do set it up and everything, all I have to do is type in Vercel link and then hit enter. Now it's gonna prompt you, ask you a few questions. So set up this, hit yes, enter for yes, and then scope of project, which is my account. Link to an existing project, no, because this is a fresh, brand new project. Next journal, sure. Code, this is our root directory, so this is where it's located. Nope, we're gonna keep it as it is. All right, so now we have linked our Vercel project successfully. Now what you want to do next is go back to the Getting Started guide and then click on Connect Project right here. Once you do, go to the drop-down menu and select Next Journal. This is an old project. This is the demo that I showed you earlier. We're going to click this one and then click Connect. All right, so now once you're done, we're going to go ahead and pull our environment variables into our local project. So we're going to go ahead and copy this command. Now, we're not going to name it .env.development.local, but we're just going to name it env. So copy this, go back to our project and paste it, hit enter. The reason why we did this is that because when we initialize Prisma and connect it to our database, Prisma is not going to be able to recognize these variables. So yeah, just keep that in mind. And this is one of the things that I noticed while creating this project, while working on this stuff. But yeah, once you do that, you're gonna get all of the environment variables right here, including the Postgres URL and the connection string. That I'm gonna, of course, delete after I'm done recording this video, after uploading it. All right, now we're ready to connect to Prisma. We're ready to create an ORM. This is gonna help us, translate our SQL, legacy SQL operations into JavaScript objects that we can easily use in our application and interact with our database. So after you've installed Prisma, all I have to do is type in npx prisma init. All right, and once you do that, all I have to do is just click here, go to Prisma schema. Now going back here, we're going to open up the documentation and go to using an ORM on the left-hand corner, click Prisma, and down here we're going to highlight those two parts right here. Just ignore this model because we're going to create our own. Just copy this part, go back to our project, highlight all of this, and paste it right here. Now ready to create our database model. So first things first, it's just going to be a single model, so not model user, but model entry, curly braces, hit enter. Now the first one is going to be an ID, and this is going to be a string, and I'm going to hit the ID annotation. Now by default it's going to be a UUID, so make sure you type that in default, and then UUID. So it's going to be the ID is going to use this format when we create an entry, a record in the database. Next, we're going to need a title. This is going to be a string. Same for the content, also a string. created at, we're going to need it so that basically in our front end, when we sort the database, all of our entries, the one that is created most recently, the most recent entry diary entry is going to show up first. So date time created at, and the default is going to be now, which is the moment we create the entry in our database. Now, before we put in the mood, we're going to create an enumerator or an enum, if you will, and this is going to be a mood. So it's good. So we can create a couple of moods, for example, joyful, excited, sad, angry as well. We can have like depressed, and let's see, exhausted, so that we're tired. Actually, let's get rid of sad. It's because it's synonymous to like depressed or anything. They're both pretty much the same. Maybe we can add in anxious too. So yeah, that is all we need for our database. Now we just type in mood like this, and there you go. I'm going to open up the terminal again so that we can push the this new model we created right here to our Postgres database. So type in npx prisma.db push, hit enter. Right, our database is now in sync with Vercel Postgres. And finally, now we have to generate types for our schema, because like I said, we're going to be using TypeScript, and type safety is like the bread and butter of this language. So we're gonna type in npx generate npx prisma generate to generate data types for our database. All right, success. Now we need to instantiate a Prisma client in our project. So let me get out of here. And now right click, I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to type in lib and then / so that this, to denote that this file is going to be stored in the lib folder. So it's going to be prisma.ts. Now inside this prisma.ts, we're going to import the Prisma client. So import Prisma client from Prisma client. Now this is where it gets interesting, because we only need a single instance of the Prisma client running in our application. We don't want it to create a new instance when we make a database call, because it's going to be pretty expensive, as our application scales and grows, but it's not going to be very efficient. So all we have to do is just declare and then global. So this is going to be a global variable in our application, and it's going to be a var prisma of type Prisma client, either that or undefined. So this value isn't, is not instantiated. Actually, this is going to be unnecessary. Just get rid of that. Now all we have to do is check if our if we're in a production environment. So process dot env dot node env equals production. Then we're going to make sure that Prisma equals. Then we're going to create a new Prisma client, as we would normally. Otherwise, so else, we're going to check if there's a global Prisma instance already created. So if the global Prisma instance hasn't been created yet, we're going to go ahead and do that. So first up, we're going to create Prisma equals global dot Prisma. We're going to go ahead to global dot Prisma equals new Prisma client. But if there is, all we have to do right now is let that local Prisma client be our global Prisma instance. So global.prisma. Now, last but not least, we have to export this Prisma variable to use throughout applications. So export default Prisma. Yeah, that's pretty much all it takes to set up our database. Now, we're going to go ahead and take care of some of the boilerplate right here. So if we go to layout TSX, we're not going to be using inter. This is unnecessary. Also going to delete the global CSS. Instead, we're going to import the Pico package, which is going to give us the Pico styling. So import Pico CSS. And get rid of the class name. And we're going to wrap this children inside the main element. So to do this, Control-Shift-P to open up the command palette, and then wrap with abbreviation as such. Now we're going to type in main.container. So this main element has a class called container. Actually, let's put the actually meant to wrap the children, not the children and the body. There it is. Going to the page TSX, we'll get rid of the images and styles. We don't need them. Also get rid of all of this. Go scroll down right here. I have a simple h1 tag for now that says hello, just to test the waters. Now we're ready to start up our application. All we have to do is type in npm run dev, and now we have our styles correctly showing. You have the hello and then this grayish background right here. Now, to test the Prisma client to be able to fetch data, we're gonna put in some dummy data in our database. So I'm gonna open up a new terminal. I'm gonna be doing this using the Prisma Studio. So it's like a database, a GUI database manager to manage our entries. So npx Prisma Studio like this. Now once you type this in, it's gonna open up the model automatically for you, the Prisma Studio. All we have to do is just click the entry model. And as you can see, it's empty because we don't have anything inside of it. Now we're gonna add a new record. The title, let's call it my journal entry. Content could be anything. We're gonna just type in blah blah blah. Mood, let's see, excited, for example. And once we're done, we're gonna click save one change. Now we're not gonna be doing this all the time, like probably never, but that's just because we need to be able to display data in our Next.js application. So going back here, all we have to do inside our home function, we're going to create a new variable called const entries. This is the new way to fetch data. So all we have to do right now is just type in await Prisma. Before we do that, we need to import the Prisma client. So type in import Prisma from libprisma, the lib folder. Now we can go ahead and use Prisma. We need to also make this asynchronous, so export default async function dot entry, and now we use find many, and then we're going to leave this empty in order to fetch all the database records. Now we're going to get rid of this part right here, put this inside a fragment, React fragment, curly braces in order to loop over the array that we get back from the response. So let me just close the terminal. All right, now we're going to type in entries dot map. So after we do that, we're going to type in entry, then the arrow right here, curly braces, return, we're just going to go ahead and, let's get rid of these curly braces. I'm going to put in a fragment, maybe a div, for example, and this div will have a key of entry dot ID. Inside of every div, we're going to have a title, h1, and then the p tags will be entry content. Now, we're going to style this later, add it in a cart component, but now we need to make sure that it's working. We go back here to create next app. There it is, as you can see. I have my journal entry, and yeah. So now we got everything working. It's time to style our Next.js and create some actual CRUD operations.